Hello everyone, welcome to Shockboo Horror Stories. Before we dive into the tales of terror, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. Also, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? Your comments will significantly help my channel's growth, and I appreciate your support more than you know. Alright, let's dive into the stories. I've hiked the Appalachian Trail sections in North Carolina dozens of times. I know these mountains like the back of my hand, or at least I thought I did. What happened last October changed everything I thought I knew about these woods. It was a Tuesday morning, mid-fall, and the leaves were at their peak. I'd taken the day off work to hit the trail before the weekend crowd showed up. The parking lot at the trailhead was empty except for my Jeep, which was perfect. I like hiking alone. Always have. There's something about the solitude that clears my head in a way nothing else can. The first 3 miles were beautiful. The kind of beautiful that makes you forget about your mortgage and your boss and all the small stresses that pile up during the week. Just me, the rustling leaves, and the occasional bird call. Then around mile 4, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned and saw a guy, maybe in his 30s, wearing a faded red jacket and a hiking pack that looked like it had seen better days. He waved and smiled, and I nodded back. I'm not unfriendly, but I also wasn't looking for company. Still, the trail is for everyone, so I didn't think much of it. But then he caught up to me, started walking alongside me. That's when the conversation began. His name was Marcus, he said. He was from Asheville, worked as a park ranger before he decided to take some time off to really explore the trails he'd been managing for years. We talked about the usual stuff, favorite trails, worst weather we'd been caught in, that kind of thing. He was nice enough, easy to talk to. Had this way of asking questions that made you want to keep the conversation going. We hiked together for about 2 hours. He told me about growing up in the mountains, about his dad teaching him to fish in the streams that run through these forests. He mentioned a spot up ahead where the view was supposed to be incredible, a little off the main trail. Said he'd been meaning to check it out. I was game. Like I said, I knew these mountains, but there's always something new to discover. That's when things started feeling off. We took the side trail he mentioned, and after about 15 minutes, I realized I didn't recognize any of the landmarks. The trees looked denser. The light seemed different. I checked my phone for the GPS, but of course, no signal. I'd been stupid to leave the main trail with someone I'd just met. I told Marcus I thought we should head back. He agreed immediately, which made me feel a little better. But as we turned around, I noticed something strange. His boots weren't making any sound on the leaves. I could hear my own footsteps crunching and shuffling, but his were silent, completely. I stopped walking. He stopped too, a few feet ahead of me, and turned around. That's when I really looked at his face. His skin was too pale, his eyes too dark, and when he smiled, it didn't reach those eyes at all. I asked him straight out, "Who are you, really?" He tilted his head like he was thinking about how to answer. Then he said something I'll never forget. He said he'd been hiking this trail 5 years ago. Said he'd taken a wrong turn, tried to find his way back, but got lost as the sun went down. Said he fell, hit his head on a rock near a creek. Said he'd been trying to find his way out ever since. I felt my stomach drop. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. He kept talking, kept explaining how he didn't realize what had happened at first. How he kept trying to get help from other hikers, but most people couldn't see him or hear him. But sometimes, every once in a while, someone could. Someone like me. He said he wasn't trying to scare me. He just wanted to talk to someone. Said it had been so long since anyone had really seen him. And then he asked me for a favor. He asked me to tell his family where he was. He told me his last name. Told me about a creek about a mile east of where we were standing. Told me that's where I'd find what was left of him. I don't know how long I stood there. Could have been seconds or minutes. But when I blinked, he was gone. Just vanished like he was never there at all. I ran. I ran back the way I thought we'd come. Branches scratching my face. My heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. It took me almost an hour to find the main trail again. When I got back to my Jeep, I sat in the driver's seat shaking for 20 minutes before I could even put the key in the ignition. When I got home, I did something I still can't fully explain. I looked up his last name online with keywords like missing hiker and Appalachian Trail, and I found him. Marcus Chen, age 32, reported missing 5 years ago after he didn't return from a solo hike. His family had been searching for him for months. They'd never found a body. I called the number listed on one of the old missing person posters. A woman answered. His sister. I told her everything. Told her about the creek, gave her the exact location as best as I could describe it. She was quiet for a long time. Then she thanked me, her voice barely a whisper. 2 weeks later, I saw a news article. They'd found remains matching Marcus Chen's dental records. Exactly where he said they'd be. Near a creek, off the main trail. He'd fallen and hit his head, just like he told me. The medical examiner estimated he'd been there for about 5 years. I haven't been back to that trail since. I don't think I ever will. Because sometimes when I'm alone at night, I wonder how many others are out there, wandering those mountains, hoping someone will finally see them and help them find their way home. The three of us had been planning this trip for months. Me, Jason, and Tyler had been best friends since high school, and even though life had taken us in different directions after college, we made a point to do at least one adventure together every year. This year it was a 3-day camping trip in the Smokies, specifically around Clingmans Dome and the surrounding backcountry. We started our hike on a Friday afternoon in early September. The weather forecast was perfect. Clear skies, mild temperatures, and the summer crowds had already thinned out. We planned to camp at a designated backcountry site the first night, then spend the next day exploring some of the more remote areas before heading back on Sunday. That first night was exactly what we'd hoped for. We set up our tents, cooked some food over our camp stove, and stayed up late talking and laughing the way we always did. Jason told his terrible jokes. Tyler complained about his job. I talked about maybe finally asking out the girl who worked at the coffee shop near my apartment. It was perfect. The kind of night that makes you feel like everything is going to be okay, you know? Saturday morning, we woke up early and decided to split up for a few hours. Tyler wanted to check out a waterfall he'd read about that was a couple miles off our route. Jason and I wanted to climb to a ridge overlook we'd seen on the map. We agreed to meet back at camp by 2 in the afternoon, gave ourselves plenty of time before dark. Jason and I got back to camp around 1:30. We were in good spirits, the hike had been beautiful, and we'd taken some great photos. We set up our chairs and waited for Tyler. 2 o'clock came and went. No Tyler. By 3, we started joking that he'd probably gotten distracted taking pictures. Tyler was like that, always stopping to photograph mushrooms or interesting tree bark or whatever caught his eye. By 4 o'clock, we weren't joking anymore. By 5, we were actively worried. We packed up some supplies and headed in the direction Tyler had gone, calling his name, checking our phones even though we knew there was no signal out here. Nothing. No response. No sign of him. When it started getting dark, we made the decision to hike back to the nearest ranger station. It took us almost 3 hours in the dark with our headlamps. When we finally found a ranger, we explained everything. They organized a search party that went out that night. Jason and I went with them, but we didn't find anything. No Tyler, no backpack, no trace of him at all. The search continued through Sunday. They brought in dogs, volunteers, more rangers. They searched the waterfall area. They searched everywhere within a 5-mile radius. Nothing. It was like Tyler had just vanished into thin air. By Monday morning, Jason and I were exhausted and terrified. We'd barely slept. We'd called Tyler's parents, which was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. They drove up from Tennessee and arrived by afternoon. His mom was crying. His dad looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. The search went on. Tuesday morning, they expanded the search area even further, and that's when they found him. A hiker who wasn't even part of the official search party stumbled onto Tyler's body about 7 miles from where he'd said he was going. 7 miles. The rangers couldn't understand it. There was no reason for him to have been that far off course. The waterfall he'd been heading to was in the complete opposite direction. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. When they examined his body, the medical examiner said he'd been dead for approximately 36 to 48 hours, which meant he'd died sometime on Saturday, probably Saturday afternoon or evening. Jason and I had been searching for him Saturday night. We'd been calling his name. We'd been less than a few miles away at times during the official search, and he'd been lying there the whole time, already gone, and we didn't know it. They said it looked like he'd fallen, maybe hit his head. There was trauma to the back of his skull. but they couldn't explain why he'd gone so far off his planned route. His camera was found near his body. When they checked the photos, the last ones were of the waterfall he'd intended to visit. Normal pictures. Nothing strange. Nothing that explained what happened after. The thing that haunts me most is the timeline. If he died Saturday afternoon, that was only a few hours after we'd split up. If we hadn't separated, if we'd all stayed together, would he still be alive? Was it quick? Did he suffer? Did he call out for help that nobody heard? His parents asked us to speak at the funeral. I don't remember what I said. I remember standing at the podium looking at the closed casket and thinking about how Tyler should have been there, making jokes about how boring funerals are. How he should have been the one helping us get through someone else's loss, not being the loss we had to get through. Jason and I don't talk much anymore. It's not that we're mad at each other. It's that every time we talk, we both think about Tyler. We both think about that Saturday morning when everything was still fine. When we made the decision to split up. When we didn't know it was the last time we'd see our friend alive. I drive past the exit for the Smokies sometimes on my way to visit my parents. I never take it. I can't. Those mountains took my best friend, and I still don't understand why. I still don't understand how a simple day hike turned into a nightmare that we're never going to wake up from. Sometimes I dream that I'm back on that trail calling Tyler's name. And in the dream, he answers. He comes walking out of the trees with that goofy smile of his, asking what all the fuss is about. But then I wake up and remember that he's never going to answer. He's never going to walk out of those trees, and I'm never going to stop wondering what really happened out there in those woods. We'd been living in our cabin outside Boone for about 6 months when it happened. My wife Sarah and I had saved for years to buy a little place in the mountains. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom cabin on 5 acres, far enough from town to feel like we'd escaped the rat race, but close enough that we could get groceries without planning a major expedition. We loved it there. Loved waking up to the sound of birds instead of traffic. Loved sitting on our porch at night watching the stars. We felt safe, isolated in a good way. The kind of isolation that feels like freedom. It was a Thursday night in late November. Cold, but not freezing yet. We'd finished dinner and were watching a movie when we heard the first sound. A crash from the back of the house, like something heavy falling over. I hit pause on the TV and we both sat there listening. Sarah looked at me with wide eyes and whispered that maybe it was a bear getting into our trash. We'd been warned about bears when we moved in. Our nearest neighbor, old Mr. Patterson, who lived about a mile down the road, had told us to keep our garbage locked up tight. But I'd been lazy that week. I'd left a bag of trash on the back porch, planning to take it to the bins in the morning. I grabbed a flashlight and went to check, telling Sarah to stay inside. When I opened the back door and shined the light around, I saw that our trash bag had been torn open. Food scraps everywhere, but no bear. The trees were still. Everything was quiet. Too quiet, actually. I realized I couldn't hear any of the usual night sounds. No insects, no rustling, nothing. I went back inside and locked the door. Told Sarah it was probably just a raccoon or something. She nodded, but neither of us really believed it. We went back to our movie, but we weren't really watching anymore. We were listening, waiting. About 20 minutes later, we heard footsteps. Not animal footsteps, human footsteps on our porch. Heavy boots, multiple sets of them. Sarah grabbed my arm so hard I could feel her nails digging in even through my shirt. I reached for my phone to call 911, but my hand was shaking so bad I almost dropped it. Before I could dial, someone tried the door handle. Just tried it casually, like they were checking if we'd left it unlocked. We hadn't. Thank God we hadn't. Then we heard voices. Men's voices. 3 or 4 of them. They were talking to each other, but I couldn't make out the words. Then the banging started. Someone was pounding on the door, demanding we open it. The voice was rough, aggressive. He said they knew we were in there, said they could see our car outside, said we needed to open the door right now, or things were going to get bad. I was on the phone with 911 by then. The dispatcher was trying to keep me calm, telling me officers were on their way, but I knew it would take at least 20 minutes for anyone to reach us out here. Maybe more. Sarah was crying quietly, trying not to make any sound they could hear. They stopped banging on the front door and everything went quiet again. For about 30 seconds I thought maybe they'd left. Then we heard the sound of breaking glass from the bedroom. They were coming in through the window. I grabbed Sarah and we ran to our bathroom. It was the only room with a lock on the inside door and no windows. We locked ourselves in, and I pushed Sarah into the bathtub, covering her with my body. I could hear them inside our house now. Boots on our floors, things being knocked over, drawers being opened and emptied. They were looking for valuables, cash, jewelry, electronics, anything they could carry. And they were taking their time about it. They weren't rushing. They knew we were there somewhere and they didn't care. Or maybe that made it more fun for them. One of them tried the bathroom door. The handle rattled. Then he kicked it. The door shook but held. He kicked it again and again. On the fourth kick, I heard the wood starting to splinter. Sarah was sobbing into my chest, and I was whispering to her that it was going to be okay, that the police were coming, but I didn't believe it. I thought we were going to die in our own bathroom. Then we heard sirens, distant but getting closer. The kicking stopped. We heard shouting and then the sound of running. They were leaving, getting out before the police arrived. The sirens got louder and I heard car doors slamming, engines starting. By the time I got the courage to come out of the bathroom, they were gone. The police found our house completely ransacked. They'd taken our TV, our laptop, Sarah's jewelry box, about $300 in cash we'd kept in a kitchen drawer. They'd gone through everything, our closets, our drawers. They'd even taken prescription medication from our medicine cabinet. The officers were professional and sympathetic, but they were also realistic. They said this kind of thing had been happening more often in rural areas. Groups of men targeting isolated homes. They took fingerprints but said not to get our hopes up. These guys knew what they were doing. The worst part was they told us we were lucky. Another couple about 30 miles away had been home during a similar break-in 2 months earlier. The husband had confronted the intruders and ended up in the hospital with a fractured skull and broken ribs. His wife had been traumatized so badly she refused to stay in their house anymore. They'd moved in with family in Charlotte and put the house up for sale. Sarah and I left that night. Stayed in a hotel in town. We went back the next day with Mr. Patterson to get some clothes and important documents. But we couldn't stay there. Every sound made us jump. Every shadow looked like someone coming through a window. We put the cabin on the market 2 weeks later and sold it at a loss. We didn't care. We just wanted out. We live in an apartment in Raleigh now. 3rd floor, security cameras, doorman, multiple locks. Sarah still has nightmares sometimes. Wakes up thinking she hears someone breaking in. I've installed extra locks on every door and window, even though we're in a secure building. The therapist says it's going to take time. Sometimes I think about that cabin. About how much we loved it there before everything happened. About how we thought isolation would keep us safe when really it just made us vulnerable. About how those men knew exactly what they were doing, targeting people like us who were far from help. The police never caught them. They robbed 2 more houses in the area before the trail went cold. For all I know, they're still out there, driving around mountain roads, looking for the next isolated cabin with lights on and a car in the driveway. Looking for the next people who made the mistake of thinking that peace and quiet meant safety. We wanted to escape to the mountains. We wanted that simple life away from everything. But we learned the hard way that sometimes the scariest things aren't supernatural. Sometimes the monsters are real, and they know exactly where to find you when you're all alone.